Eddie, new signings, new shows, a double fight week as well. January's not usually a busy period for boxing, but we've hit the ground running. How excited are you for what's upcoming?
I think it's always good to get off to a good start. You know, sometimes you don't get into action till February, but we've come out hot this year. Obviously, great show on the Gold Coast with Jai Opataya. Now we've got a double show this weekend in Nottingham and Las Vegas, a string of big Olympic signings as well, and some massive show announcements today as well, particularly, of course, April 12th, the huge fight for boots in America. And looking forward to what will be a massive 2025.
Why was the double fight week something that you were keen to do? For the DAZN subscriber, that's brilliant, but why was that something you wanted to do?
It's just something that we've never done before. I mean, I personally, I like to be at every show. So I'm selfish. I don't like to do two shows on the same night. But originally we were going to go on the 18th of January. That became originally the Darren Till against Tommy Fury show. So we doubled up. And when you start looking about it, it's a 12-hour broadcast. And I think DAZN is doing just about everything in boxing right now. And this is just something completely different. A Matchroom event running 12 hours simultaneously across the night. And big nights for a lot of the fighters on the card. So it's the first time we've done it, a double show on the same night in two different countries. And for fight fans, cancel all plans and lock in.
We'll start with Dalton Smith back home before we dive into Deigo Pacheco here. This is the European title, obviously, for him, something that he's wanted to do to complete all the belts. And then after that, is it really a full-scale attack on the world champions at 140?
Yeah, we were in Germany at the WBC convention. Dalton's very well placed. He's WBC silver champion. He's won the British. He's won the Commonwealth. We believe he'll win the European title as well this weekend. He's going to be mandatory very soon for the WBC world title. So he's in a great position. And the European title was something that was very important for him. Originally, he was scheduled to fight Fernandez in September of last year. He had the neck injury. Now all is great. He's firing on all cylinders and just wants to lock in and get this belt done. And for any young British fighter to win the British, Commonwealth, European before they go to World Honours, that's like the dream route. So hopefully we'll be job done come Sunday morning. And then we can focus on the big names at 140 pounds. I believe Dalton Smith is a world champion in the weighting. I think he's going to be world champion for a long time. I think he's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in Britain, and we're looking for a big statement from him Saturday in Nottingham.
Where does he fit in that picture? Obviously, we've got Sandor Martin and Alberto Puello fighting on March the 1st. How soon after that do you think he'll be called to actually fight the winner of that fight?
Well, I think he'll be mandatory for the winner of that fight, but you also know that that's a vacant title. They'll be trying to squeeze in another voluntary in the meantime. So you may have to wait towards the back half of 2025. That's fine. But I think next up for Dalton, if he comes through Saturday, is that fight to bridge the gap between the level he's been fighting at and the World Championship. And with all due respect to Puello and Sandor Martin, they're not the strongest of champions at 140. Good fighters, particularly Sandor Martin, tricky guy, but I don't rate him, like a Richardson Hitchens or a Teofimo Lopez. So for Dalton, I think he's well placed. It's very likely you'll see him in the summer in a big fight. And, Adam Azim is a fight we'd love to make. So hopefully that might be the one in the middle. But if not, we need a big name at 140 to prepare him for what is an inevitable world title shot in 2025.
Ellie Scotney as well, defending her world titles against a very game Miyamoto. She wants to take Ellie's head off on Saturday.
This is a very good fight, a very tough fight. And Ellie is so exciting. She's exciting against fighters that aren't always come forward, aren't all action. And you've seen in the interviews from Miyamoto, she's bang up for this. She's going to come and go at it on Saturday night. And Ellie Scotney will not be afraid to stand there and trade with her. That will be a fantastic fight. For Ellie, the only thing we have to do is to win all the belts at Super Bantam before she moves up to 126, which is inevitable at some point. But I want to see her win all those belts. This also has the IBO strap on Saturday, Miyamoto's title. It's going to be a tough fight. A really good fight as well.
Conor Walker's a great story, I think, because he came on one of our cards against Cyrus Pattinson as an opponent, and he just kept winning. Sometimes he's lost, but he always delivers great fights, and now he gets the opportunity for the British and Commonwealth.
Yeah, I mean, Conor's one of our favourite fighters. Always in brilliant fights. Had a very close fight with Lewis Crocker. But this is, again, going back to Dalton Smith, winning those British and Commonwealth titles, for someone like Conor Walker, that would be something that lives with him forever. He could almost leave the sport. If that was his biggest achievement, he would leave the sport happy winning that Lonsdale title. He's got a very tough job against Harry Scarf, who's actually heavily underrated, not always the most exciting. And actually, Conor Walker is calling on Harry Scarf to be exciting this Saturday. So am I. This is my appeal to Harry Scarf to stand and fight on Saturday. I know you're not going to do it for 12 rounds because that's just not your style. And I know you like to box and move and you're very good at it. But if you are going to get slots on shows, if you are going to be in big fights on TV, you have to be exciting. So mix it up, Harry. Stand and fight with Conor a little bit. And, you know, he might fancy his chances to do that. Conor will give it everything, 110%. Another really good fight, 3 really good fights in Nottingham. And Conor Walker against Harry Scarf, Conor's got to just go for it. 12 rounds of just harassing him. And hopefully it's Anu.
And there's also a lot of great young talent on that show as well. And then when that card finishes, we get starting here in Las Vegas. Deigo Pacheco, like Dalton, sitting very healthily in the governing bodies across all of them for Deigo. Why then take the risk against 20-0 Stephen Nelson from the Terence Crawford camp?
Because if you can't beat Stephen Nelson, I want Deigo Pacheco to fight Canelo Alvarez, right? In the next 6 to 12 months, Deigo Pacheco, if he keeps winning, will be mandatory for Canelo Alvarez. What is the point in protecting that fighter on that route? Because you've got to prove your worth. Steve Nelson is a world-class 168-pounder. I don't think he's an elite guy. I'm talking about, you know, the Canelo Alvarez's, the Caleb Plants, the Belangas, the Munguias. I don't think he's of that ilk, but I think he's a world-class fighter. And I think he's a very dangerous fight for Deigo Pacheco. And let me tell you one reason why he's dangerous. This is a dream shot for him. This is everything he's ever worked for. Terence Crawford, the training team, Bomac, they have drilled this guy for this moment. And this is a very dangerous fight. And I like what I see from Deigo. I like the balanced mind. I like the calm nature. I don't think he's getting ahead of himself. And if he can do a job on Steve Nelson, in my opinion, we're one fight away from Canelo Alvarez. And then it's got to be a Plant, a Belanga, an Mbili, a Munguia, those kind of guys. But this is a really, really good 168-pound matchup. 2 undefeated guys.
Obviously, it will only be those 2 in the ring, but every great fighter needs a great camp, a great corner. Are you a little bit nervous of the Bomac and Terence Crawford factor? Because obviously that's a serious camp.
I'm not nervous. It just means they're going to come 100% prepared with a brilliant game plan and a great team of people behind them in their ear. You know, I mean, Crawford, some people they live and breathe boxing, right? Crawford's one of them. Shakur's another one. I would say Terence Crawford is probably more excited this week for Steve Nelson than maybe sometimes when he's fighting, because he just loves it. He lives and breathes it. So when you've got that positivity, when you've got that quality within the camp, that's going to bring you on as a fighter, both in your preparation and also your mindset and just your mojo. So Crawford, Bomac, Nelson, they are coming to win this fight on Saturday, and they're a real threat.
Someone else who has that same sort of attitude is Keyshawn Davis, and the rumours are that he's going to turn up on Saturday night. Andy Cruz is obviously fighting. Will you be stirring the pot?
Of course. Oh, I love Keyshawn. I think, you know, 1, he's a tremendous fighter, and 2, he's a great personality. He's exactly what boxing needs. That whole mould of young American fighters, you know, you got Shakur, you got Teo, you got Devin, you got Tank, you got Ryan Garcia, you got Richardson Hitchens. I mean, like, so many good young fighters. Omari Jones coming in now, turning pro. These guys are tremendous fighters. Keyshawn is one of the best lightweights in the world. But he has never, and he will never, beat Andy Cruz. Because, as Andy says, Keyshawn is his son. And he's owned him every time they've stepped in the ring. And people talk about the amateurs is different to the pros. Granted, doesn't matter. He will own him again. And I'll tell you something about Keyshawn Davis, which I respect. he'll fight him. He will. Everyone will look to avoid Andy Cruz. And by the way, don't look past Saucedo. This is a very tough fight. But if he does a job on him, then he's only one fight away himself from the world title. And I believe Keyshawn is the kind of fighter that will step up and go, you know what? I'll fight him. And it'll be a big fight. It'll be a big moment. And, you know, if Andy gets the job done on Saturday, those two, yeah, I think we'll have a bit of fun with it.
Andy said yesterday when he was in here for his media day slot that winning is the most important thing, but he also wants to make his son proud ringside. He wants his son to be sat ringside and be proud of his dad. When he does win, if he does win, it's going to be brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? Like I said about Keyshawn, he's a real fighter. And all this son stuff, it's all tongue-in-cheek, but it'll wind him up. And he will want to fight him. You know, he's a competitor. And I think we've got the two best lightweights in the world. Shakur Stevenson and Andy Cruz. That's who I believe are the best two lightweights in the world. And then you've got Gervonta Davis and Keyshawn Davis and others. But for me, we have the best two lightweights in the world.
If all of that wasn't enough, we've also announced Omari Jones, the signature of him. A lot of people chasing him, but we ultimately got him. How big a signing is that for Matchroom?
A massive signing because, firstly, he's an Olympic Game medalist, American fighter. You know, top rank, PBC, they've all had meetings with him. They've all been trying to sign him and he chose us. And that's a big responsibility for us. Tremendously gifted fighter. You know, all the attributes, all the fundamentals of a great boxer. And I think America's next superstar. You know, we've got some brilliant talent, even on the show this Saturday. You know, Harley Medeiros, Zaquin Moses, what a fighter. Nishant Dev, Indian Olympian, turning pro. We've got the best stable in the world. And we've got so many great young fighters. And Omari Jones is leading the way, of course, now with his debut set for Orlando. Caribe Royale on March 15th will be an amazing homecoming for him.
Another show that we've announced, Jaron Boots Ennis, the unification, we finally landed it. How important was that for you to deliver that for him?
Do you know what? It's one of the most pleasing and rewarding announcements I think we've ever made. Because we had, or Boots had, a dream that we were responsible for administering. And that was for him to unify the division and become the standout best 147 pounder in the world. I have to give respect to Stanionis because no one really wanted to fight Boots. And maybe the last performance just thought, you know, and this is a brilliant fight. This is the number 1 and number 2 welterweight in the world fighting for the IBF, the WBA and the Ring Magazine belt to tell us unequivocally who the best 147 pounder is in the world. And Boots had a lot of criticism because he stood by his dream. And when the Ortiz fight came, when the Teofimo fight came, he said to me, Eddie, I want to unify the division. I want to win all the belts. Please make it happen. And we made it happen. We delivered. And we're at the Boardwalk Hall. An arena steeped in history. It's going to be a huge show. And to all the people who doubted him, all the people who took shots at him, this is the real fight. April 12th, Atlantic City. Boots against Stanionis for welterweight supremacy. And the Ring Magazine belt. And you know, the last 2 owners of the Ring Magazine belt at welterweight, Terence Crawford and Floyd Mayweather, going back decades. And beyond that, Leonard, Hagler, Sugar Ray Robinson. This is the quality that we're going to see in this fight. And this is the statement that Boots will make to prove he is a pound-for-pound great.
I think what's even better about this fight as well is that Stanionis, like you said, is number 2. There are other champions that he could have taken, but Boots has gone head on for the toughest one.
Brian Norman, Barrios, 2 good fighters. Stanionis is the one. Stanionis is the toughest fight for Boots. And you will see the best be the best. Claim the crown. And that is what it's all about.
Eddie, just before we wrap up here, if you could, in typical Eddie Hearn fashion, sum up to the DAZN subscriber why they should tune in this weekend for the marathon, the 12-hour broadcast.
Well, it's boxing heaven on Saturday in Nottingham and Las Vegas. 12-hour straight broadcast before the bell in Nottingham, and then into the main card. As we said earlier, Ellie Scotney in a brilliant fight against Miyamoto, Conor Walker going for the British and Commonwealth titles against Harry Scarf, and Dalton Smith looking to win the only other belt outside of a world championship that he wants so bad, the European title, before we head to Las Vegas. What a before the bell section. 3 of the hottest young prospects in the game. Harley Medeiros, Zachary Moses, and the Indian Olympian Nishant Dev makes his professional debut before we go into a great opening card. Ruba Clava against Mercado, and then the real Tito Mercado after that against Jose Pedraza. What a fight. Andy Cruz against Saucedo, Pacheco against Nelson. Brilliant card from the Cosmo on Saturday in Las Vegas, and a great night of boxing. 12 hours, we got you covered. Cancel all plans. Saturday and Sunday, it's on.